Hey, what's up? DFS Rico coming at you with my picks and insight for this LPL LCK 5-game slate on Saturday, April 11th. Before I get started, if you can like, subscribe, comment at the end of the video. Just going to do a shorter video today. Just going to run through some of my favorite picks for cash and GPP, and then maybe some of the players I would surround my lineups around or make sure to include for those specific teams. But today is going to be a tough slate in my opinion for cash. Yesterday looked better on cash, but cash honestly got destroyed. All the favorites just got beat. You had FPX lose yesterday, you had T1 lose yesterday, and you had TES yesterday lose. The three best teams on the slate all lost, which is crazy. Today a lot different. RNG is the biggest favorite on the slate, so I would make sure I include them in my cash lineup. The second team you want to stack them with is going to be kind of tough just because they're all slight favorites. Everyone else other than that game, you got OMG with slight favorites, KT Rolster with slight favorites, E-Star with very slight favorites, and HLE with slight favorites. So, I mean, kind of just going to be a toss-up. I'll give my insight on who I'm going to pick, but, I mean, could go all those four games can honestly go either way. The only game I really feel confident about is RNG. But so yeah, RNG is a team I'm playing in cash for sure. And then OMG is playing LGD, which LGD is a good team. They're not a slouch. They have games where they disappear, and then they have games where they really show up. Last 2 weeks they've shown up. They beat RNG last week, 2-0'd them, and then before that they beat Team WE, which is another good team. It's not like they're beating bad teams. They beat some good teams these last 2 out of the last 3 weeks. So yeah, they have that going for them. So I mean, they can beat OMG, but I do prefer OMG. I think OMG just has better carries for sure. And then you got KT versus SB, which I do like KT as well for cash. It's kind of considers like when aiming shows up for KT, they're gonna win. Like, that's exactly what happened yesterday. Aiming showed up, and they won, practically. He's kind of like the only really good player on their team, and they kind of built their comps around him. So I think they'll do that. I think that those three teams are the three I feel more confident in. E-Star and HLE are not too confident in cash, in my opinion. E-Star is on a landslide right now. They've lost 3 in a row. But when they are performing, they are the best team on this slate for sure. So, I mean, it's just kind of like, I'd rather just take the safetiness, and they are playing against WE, which is another really good high-scoring team. So, I think that game is going to be my GPP lineup, whichever way you want to decide to go. Both of them have the highest upside on the slate, in my opinion. Whoever wins is going to be in the optimal lineup for sure. And then you got APK Prince, which they are slight underdogs, and I do like them over HLE for sure. They 2-0'd them earlier this year. HLE's not that good. I don't know why they're favored. They're 14-23 all season, in games at least, and APK is also 14-23, but APK has actually shown up more consistently, in my opinion. They've actually gone on some winning streaks. They've beaten some good teams for sure. I mean, they just got one game versus Gen G last week, and Gen G's practically the best team in their conference. Or in their league, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so for top lane, let's just get right to it. For top lane, I really like laying X for RNG if I am going to be playing them. He is 7,200, but I do like him for sure. And then you got Xiao Bai for E-Star. If you do play them in GPPs, I do like him with the savings at 7K. He's the cheapest guy on their team other than Chelsea, but he can show up with high upside for sure. And like I mentioned, OMG for cash if you're playing them. So I do like those guys, all of them. I mean, out of all my favorite teams, Sohwan is the one I would avoid the most for KT. He's just nothing special in that top lane. I'm not a big fan of him at all. I don't think he shows up ever. Like, he doesn't have those slate winning or slate difference scores. So he's practically the one I would lean towards not playing. And then let's go to jungler. For jungler, the highest upside on the slate is WEI Wei. For sure leads the slate on assists per game, 25.1 per match, which is just insane for a jungler. When they're succeeding, it's usually because he's putting a ton of pressure on the lanes. So I do like him if I am going to go with that E-Star stack and GPPs. Or you can play him in cash as well. They are favorites, but like I said, I think they have the toughest matchup out of any favorite on the slate. And then XLB, if you're going to round out that 4-player or 3-player stack for RNG. And then Hacker, I like him as well. And then, like I mentioned, for WE, I would make sure I include Beisheng if I'm going that way. He's probably my favorite jungler from all the underdogs. But Bono, if I am playing KT, is one player I would include. Like I mentioned, KT is not really an amazing team, in my opinion. They're not that special. But when they're winning, it's usually because aiming is doing well and Bono is doing well. So those are the two guys I would make sure I include in my lineups if I am playing them. And Bono is only 6,200 for a jungler, which is really good. They did just beat T1 yesterday, which is another really good team. So maybe they're going to turn it around because they were on a losing streak after they had like 7 wins in a row. Cryin, highest upside out of any mid laner on the slate. I do like him. Icon as well for OMG. If I am playing cash, I would probably include him in there. Not crazy upside, but he is a good player for sure. Consistent player. You know what you're going to get out of him. And then Xiaohu, if I'm playing that RNG cash stack, I do like him. Not a huge fan of Koro for KT. He's alright. It's nothing too special, but in cash, I wouldn't mind him in cash since I do think they're going to win. And then Teacher Mara, if you're playing the upset, I do like him as well for WE. And then I guess LGD, you can play them in an upset as well. So you could go with Yuki over OMG, but they're not I don't feel as confident in them to win as I do with WE to pull off an upset at least. But can go either way, as you noticed yesterday was insane. And then you got your AD carries. Obviously, Wink up top, the best AD carry, highest upside on the slate out of any player for sure. And then you got Betty for RNG. If I am going to be stacking them, I am going to be playing Betty. We need Uzi to come back though, one of these days. Practically the best AD carry in the world. When he comes back, RNG will be a much better team for sure. And then you got aiming for KT, as I mentioned. So 9.6 kills per game, 9.7 leads the slate in player of the games with 11. He just had 2 yesterday again versus T1. So it kind of shows you when they're winning, it's usually due in part because of him. And Gio Ming for WE and Smiles are the ones I really like. Smiles is like 9. He has like 9 player of the game. So when OMG's winning, it's usually more in part because of him, not because of Icon. So I would rather prefer him over Icon if I had to pick for sure, but Icon is a solid pick for sure. I think that's it. And then you got supports. Shall See up top with the highest upside out of any support. And then Ming for RNG. I like him in cash. Tucson, another guy I like in cash for KT, but not too over the, I'm not crazy about him, but he's good. And then Cold, if you're going to be pairing him up with Smiles, I wouldn't mind that either. Usually they go hand in hand when they're both succeeding. Then Missing, he's tied for the league in, for the slate with 24.9 assists per match with Shall See. So kind of whichever one you pick out, I would probably recommend playing them just to save the money in your lineups. If whichever way you decide to go, can't game stack it, but team stacking, the support's one I would make sure I include for either team. But I think, and Killua, if you are playing the upset with LGD, you can play Killua. 29.2 assists per match. He actually leads the slate in assists, but he's only played like 4 matches this season. And I don't really include that. He needs to play more matches for me to actually really consider him the best, support on this slate. So, but I do like him if you're going with that upset. But yeah, thanks for watching. That's really all I got. Like I mentioned, my cash, RNG, OMG, and KT. My if I am going for GPPs, I am playing E-Star, APK, Team WE, or LGD. Good day to play GPPs in my opinion, but I know some people prefer cash, so I will give that's my insight on cash. But I mean, look at yesterday.